Welcome back to the episode on education in Cantabria.
Well, I'm always the believer. I don't practice this my own belief. I think it's amazing when a kid goes to their local school
Of course,
because
and
I think
for
it's
the family as well,
it
for
is.
community,
Yeah,
right?
I think if you can do that, it's the best thing ever. It doesn't
Mm.
work for everybody. It doesn't, in my personal situation, it doesn't work for us because of where we work.
Yeah.
We've based our schools around where we work because
Mm.
that's where it's convenient for drop off and for collection and
Yeah.
different things like that. So we weren't able to take advantage of living beside the local school and sending
Mm.
them there because I think that's amazing. As you know, there are amazing playgrounds here.
Mm.
And if you live near your school, and your kid goes to the park beside your school, they've got all their friends there, their social life is amazing. Then if they're invited to a birthday party, it's near the school or it's near
Yeah.
the park, and it
And
makes
parents
life
can get to
very
know each
convenient.
other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Parents can get to know each other. And so it's, again, going back to that holistic aspect of a child, especially as children grow up,
Mhm. Yeah.
it's really important that you know who your children's friends' families are.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
find that really happens in the infants
yeah.
stage in
Yeah.
infant year. The 3, 4, and 5-year-olds is when you really get to know people because everybody has to pick up their kid. Well, if you've
Mm.
got a school bus, it's a different situation if it's a
Mm.
country school. But in the city schools, everyone goes and pick up their kid. Often
Mm.
grandparents are involved too. So you may find you have a grandmother or grandfather in your social group, which is, it's lovely, which I would
Mm.
never have experienced that until coming here. They're really involved in their
Very
grandkids'
much so.
education here. So yeah, that's where when the parents are hanging around, everyone starts to
Mm.
chat, and it's where friendships are formed. And I
Yeah.
find that's the connection that tends to last.
Yeah. And that can be daunting as well for foreigners moving here who don't
Mhm.
speak Spanish fluently enough to have those conversations.
Yeah,
And I
it
would
is.
say, just get in there, right? It can be very difficult,
Yeah,
but
it
persist,
is.
because those friendships are really important for the whole family.
Exactly. And once you find one mom or one dad that's open to talking to you, then kind of the circle can open up
Yeah,
a little bit
yeah,
more. And then you find you're at the park and you see that person again, and you sit down, you start chatting, and then the friends start to get to know each other, and they're being invited to play dates. And I
yeah.
mean, the Spanish people are extremely social. So if
Mm.
you're at the park, you meet so many people.
Mm.
It's a
Mm.
real social area to
Yeah,
meet parents and for kids to socialize.
yeah,
The park is very important because, most people live in apartments here. So
yeah,
this is their way of playing in their garden, shall we say,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and they really enjoy it. So I mean, when in our particular school that I work in, the parents can come into the school at 1:30 and the kids are picked up at
Mm.
1:40. There's those minutes when everyone's just waiting to pick up the kid and people start chatting and you can see
Teachers
bond.
are often a little bit late as well.
Sorry?
Teachers are often a little bit late as well, so
And sometimes, yeah. Sometimes.
yeah. Yeah,
When a
yeah.
kid needs to go to the bathroom right when the bell rings, it kinda
Oh,
holds things up.
but it's interesting, with enrollments being flexible, and for it can be very difficult for people moving here to make sure, that the
Mhm.
pressure to get the right school is so important. And
Yeah.
I think, that's why I'm so proud that it's one of the services that we offer is that we, match children with the schools.
Yeah, you put a
And
lot of work into it.
because, schools might this fly is really annoying me. The schools might say something, but it doesn't mean I think you have to be buyer beware with schools as well sometimes, right?
Mhm.
And just because a school has a place available doesn't mean it's the right place for your child.
Yeah.
And I often think as well that community is so important for the family. And does the school actually know what an expat family needs as community?
Yeah.
So I think we can read between the lines and through our experience and be able to guide families on that.
But you've got to remember too, I don't think many people realize it, the level of English that teachers have here is shockingly high,
Yeah.
but sometimes their confidence isn't very good in the language because they don't
Mhm.
get to speak it every day.
Yeah.
We've been thrown into situations we have no choice, we have to speak Spanish.
Yeah.
So it's sink or swim.
Yeah.
You speak Spanish here or you don't get on. The
Mhm.
teachers over here, many of them in my staff have asked me to speak to them in English on purpose,
Mm,
or have asked me to only write to them in English so that they
yeah,
can practice with me continuously. I mean, they're very fortunate to have a native speaker in a staff. It's not the norm here.
yeah.
And also, we can use that to our advantage. For example, the Ukrainian
Mm,
community that arrive here. What was the language that they knew? English. So we received 4 or 5 families. I went down to the playground on their first day to
mm,
talk to the parents to make sure that everything was okay with them in English.
mm,
And it's just that, oh, someone can understand me, you know, and they can just relax a little bit and know, okay, if there's a problem, I'll contact that person
yeah.
and see if they're okay. But as I say, my experience is the level of English is so good here.
Mm,
Like everyone has to have Cambridge exams
mm,
to be able to qualify here, or from the official language school. They have to have a certain level to get a job.
yeah.
And because, as I said earlier, because numbers are dropping, there's fewer jobs available for teachers. So schools are becoming more picky about who they're giving jobs to. So obviously, if we've got someone coming through the system and they've got a B1 of English, or another person who's got a C1 or
Distinguished
a
from.
C2, as many teachers do have C2 level, which is native level speaking,
Yeah.
obviously you're going to pick the person with better English. So you can always rely that even if the teacher maybe that you have with your kid doesn't have a good level of English, their
Mm,
co-worker will.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I also think, I've noticed I've been coming to Cantabria and Santander for maybe about 15 years, and we've been living here for 5.5 years. And I've noticed such a huge difference in that time with not that there's yes, people are moving here and we're helping as many people as we can, but there's still not a saturation of foreigners versus local
No,
people. But
no.
I do notice that people are in shops or restaurants or schools or wherever
Mhm.
it is, that people are becoming more,
I think the word is aware.
but they're able to understand foreigners speaking Spanish with an
Mhm.
accent more. I
Yeah,
remember when I used to come here and, because speaking a language is the last step, right? As you know so
yeah,
well, right? You can
yeah, yeah.
understand and you can read, but to actually
Mhm.
verbalize is the last step.
Yeah,
And so I remember I would come here and I'd try, right? I'd be like, I'd say something, but I might say it, with an Irish Australian accent
I
and
know.
anything like it. The intonation and the syllable, didn't sound anything like what it should sound like. But I used to be like, "Oh, come on, work with me?" And
Yeah,
where now I notice that so many more people, can understand, at least when you try, that it makes it
yeah,
much easier because then you at least you have the confidence to keep trying and to keep practicing and to improve it to get better.
yeah. Well, yeah,
And
there
I
is a
also
huge
think that
emphasis. There is a huge emphasis to learn English here as
mm,
well. And the kids coming through the system now, it's unbelievable their level with with many of them. I can't say across the board. Obviously, that's not
mm,
the case. You've got certain social settings where it's easier for kids to learn languages because of economic advantages as well. They can go to academies and stuff, but
mm,
in general, the level of English since I've arrived, I've noticed a huge improvement of what's available. And there's now, I don't think we didn't touch on this yet, that
mm,
there's many bilingual schools here, which helps the kids to improve and to become more confident, and that's starting to go through the workforce now. Those kids are
yeah.
going through university and as you say, just people are more aware
Yeah. Yeah,
of the
yeah, yeah,
situation.
definitely. You mentioned something earlier that in Instituto, French is the language that many people choose. But where does
Hmm.
English sit with that? So obviously I
Oh
know that
no,
people like to,
English is one of the subjects they have to learn. They
so
have
it's a
to do
core
English.
subject. Yeah.
Yeah, English is a core subject. So they have lingua, which is Spanish,
Mm,
maths, and English is one of the core subjects. So
mm,
French is their third language. Or if it's, some schools it's German.
mm.
I don't know what other languages are available in other schools. I do know a couple do German as well. Yeah, no,
And I
but
think
French
also
is there.
it's interesting in many European countries that Spanish has become such a popular language.
Yeah, I'm dying for it to become even more popular.
I was talking to a friend in Ireland who's a French and Italian teacher in secondary
Hmm.
system in Ireland, and she was saying how that 80% of language classes in her school, which is a very big school, are now Spanish. So there's
Oh
when
wow.
we were growing up, you learned French, right? I
Yeah,
learned English
yeah,
and German, and then Italian. I learned all the languages except for Spanish actually when I was in school and university.
yeah.
But yeah, so that's crazy, that, vice
Yeah.
versa, that, English is improving here within Spain, but then also Spanish is improving. So we'll meet somewhere in
Yeah.
the middle.
Well, I think also there's been such movement within the EU, and Ryanair helps travel. You know, it's just facilitates all of us to be able to get around, and people in the financial world or in the engineering world or in the medicine world, you have to know English. It is the international language
Yeah.
for the future of your career.
Yeah.
So if you don't have English, you're really cutting yourself off.
Mhm.
So I think that's why, the education, it's really important here. I mean, they do, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 4 classes of English a week
Mm,
in the primary system.
mm,
So, I mean, that's, 4 hours of English plus PE through, if it's a bilingual school, they'll be doing physical education through English. They'll do art through English in many schools. Other schools might do music through English and
mm.
science through English. So they're
Yeah.
doing quite a lot of English through the
Yeah.
system in primary school.
So if your child is moving and they don't have any Spanish, I mean, I've seen it. Our school is all through Spanish. They learn English, but it's all through Spanish. And I've
Mhm.
seen kids come with no Spanish whatsoever, and it's incredible by Christmas how
Yeah,
they're speaking. Like I'm like, why wasn't it
yeah,
that easy for me? Um, it's incredible.
yeah.
One
You've
thing that
not
we
to
haven't
bring
touched on
on.
yet is the routine of the day.
Okay.
So typically a school starts around 9, right? Some start a little bit before, a little bit
Yeah,
afterwards.
in Santander, they stagger the times. I just think this is just me just thinking it. I think it might be just for traffic reasons that
It
they
is.
stagger the times a little bit. Yeah. So where I work, for example, we start at 8:40
Mm,
and the kids finish at 1:40. So it's 5 hours
yeah,
of education.
for primary.
For primary,
Yeah.
exactly. But the infantile does the exact same timetable.
Mm,
They do. So it really facilitates families if you've got brothers and sisters. Everyone goes in at the same time.
yeah.
However, the secondary school system works differently. A
Mhm,
lot of schools start between 8 and 8:30,
mm,
and then they finish around the 2:30. They have to do, is it 6 hours a
yeah.
day? So in infantile, it all depends on the school.
Mm,
I just know from my own experience, they do always in the a session in the morning where they're doing circle time, shall we
yeah.
say, is that's probably the international word for it. So they do, have you got any news?
Mm.
Welcome people into the day.
Connection,
They call,
right. Mm,
yeah, they call the roll, look at the weather. Has anyone got anything important
mm,
to tell? They might
mm,
tell a story, sing a song, and then they'll go into the first whatever project of the day it is.
yeah.
Then they'll have a break. They have what's called their almuerzo or brunch, and they all
Recreo.
sit down together. They have because in the system here, no one they don't have their lunch like it. At home in Ireland. We bring our lunch boxes with us,
Mm,
but that's not done here. You know how important it is to have your lunch in the middle of the day here with your family. So they bring a little brunch to keep them going.
mm,
And then after that, they'll do another little project or playtime or
mm,
whatever it is, and then they'll have another recess time again. So they'll go outside and play for 20 minutes or half an hour,
mm,
depending on what the system is. And then after that, they might do another little activity after that, and then it's home. So it's very much just broken up into little sections throughout the day for them so that they don't get tired. And then, as you know, it's so important at the 2 p.m. lunchtime here in
mm,
Spain
mm,
that most kids do go home or they go to their grandparents' house after
mm,
school. However, there's always lunchrooms in all the schools here if you need your
mm.
kid to stay at school. And generally, the timetable, as you said, is 9 to 2. That's the most general timetable that
Yeah.
you have here. There
Some schools
are
do
still some
a
schools.
split, right?
Yeah, that split, yeah, which I find very hard for those kids because the
Mm,
evening shift is a bit hard for them. They fall asleep a lot of the time. So they would work more or less 9 to 12,
mm,
and then they 12 to maybe 1:30 or 2 free, and
mm,
then again, they might do 2:30 to 4:30, more
yeah.
or less that time. In primary school, you do 5 blocks throughout the day.
Mm,
So where I work, we do 2 sessions in the morning,
mhm,
so 2 classes of, 50 minutes,
mm.
and then you have your brunch, which is 15 minutes. You get to chat to your friends, and everyone has a little brunch
And
together.
move.
Yeah, yeah, of course, absolutely. And then we do another session, and then they go out to play for 20 minutes, 25 minutes. They go
Mm,
outside, and generally everyone goes out, they run around or kick a ball or whatever. And then they do 2 sessions at the end of the day, and then it's home. So the
yeah,
day goes very, very fast.
it does, and for us parents too, I tell you.
Yeah. And then in secondary school, if I remember correctly, I think it's, how many sessions do they have? I think it's 7 sessions a day or
Mm.
7 or 8 sessions a day. I mean, they're bigger kids, so they need
You
to.
just reminded me of when we moved here because the eating schedule is different here
Yeah,
in
totally.
the
Yeah.
country. And I would send our child with, such big almuerzo,
Yeah.
because for me that's lunch, and
Mhm.
so we'd end up having 2 lunches, and then as he got older, he's like, "Mom, don't send me so much," or I
Yeah.
remember I'd be making sure that he ate enough to sustain him in that first part of
Yeah.
the day, and,
Yeah.
it is funny, but kids are so adaptable, aren't they?
Oh, totally.
Um,
And it's amazing how they have incorporated healthy eating through the system here. They push it enormous. Like they
yeah.
don't have vending machines in the schools anymore. That's
Mm,
gone. My son comes home and he tells me, "Mummy, on Mondays we have to have something dairy with some breadsticks.
yeah.
Tuesday we have to have fruit with something
Mhm.
else. Wednesday, it's not that they have to, it's recommended."
Yeah.
For birthdays, before everyone would just send in, sweets or whatever. That's not
Mhm.
allowed anymore.
No.
They have to be very careful about what you send in.
Mm.
It's very much promote a very, very much healthy eating and just to start healthy habits. It's also in the school lunchrooms. They have to a new normative is new I'm using Spanglish now. Normativo. New rules have come through that they have to buy local, have a certain amount of protein on the menu every day, every week. They have to have a certain amount of pulses, as you know, pulses are huge here,
Mm.
once or twice a week. They have to use meat, fish. It's super healthy.
Mm.
It's definitely a huge push for healthy eating over here.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, because that's how it always was. So
Yeah,
it's great, and food is such an important thing. How can a child learn if they don't have the right energy in them?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
important. Talk to me a little bit about screens, because obviously
yeah,
around the world, we're all
yeah,
realizing how perhaps we shouldn't be spending so much time on our screens, on our
yeah.
phones.
Everybody,
know, we all guilty of it. How in our school there's no screens, but that's not
right?
all.
Yeah.
How are screens used within a typical school here?
So in Infantil, you'll be hard to find a school using screens anymore. And if you are, it has to be justified. You have to give a reason for using the screen. So I find that ever since I was in the school I'm in, we haven't barely used the screens anyway in
One
Infantil.
thing I just remembered, but one thing to note is that I remember last year or at the end of the year before, the Association of Pediatric Doctors in Spain
Hmm.
changed the guidelines, didn't they? So the guidelines
Hmm.
are that under the age of 6, children
Yeah,
should not have any contact with screens. So that must have
exactly.
had a huge impact then on the school system.
Yeah, you have to kind of do a U-turn and before it was always, yes, green screen, it's good, you can do this, you can do that, and then all of a sudden a U-turn takes place and you're not, the recommendations change, and I think that's just us catching up a little
Mm,
bit with the effects of screen on kids that, we all back, was it about 2010, everyone started getting smartphones, or
mm,
2008 maybe,
mm,
but everybody started
mm.
getting it at the same time. And I think now we're just catching up to the effects of screens on everybody. And what you'll find is in the primary school system, in the earlier years, first, second, third, fourth grade as well, you might have a book that is digital, but the teacher has it.
Sure.
They're not watching cartoons. It's
Yeah, yeah,
literally the screen is up with a sum on the book.
yeah.
They're not, it's not shorts, it's not YouTube.
Yeah.
They might be learning a song.
Mm,
They might be learning a dance to a song through music. It's all educational.
mm,
And the screens are definitely not on all day long. That's an absolute definite. But
mm,
if you're in a school that is more digitally focused,
mm,
in fifth and sixth grade,
mm.
the kids will have a Chromebook, which is like a mini computer.
Yeah.
And the concept is that the kids would have their books online instead of having to bring them in
Mm.
physically for weight,
Sure.
basically, and to introduce them to the basics of computer skills.
Mm,
Now, that's everyone's personal preference.
mm,
Is it good or is it bad? When should you start a kid using a computer or not?
mm,
That's very much down to everyone's personal decision with that. Where I work, we have a Chromebook in fifth and
mm,
sixth grade. They learn so much,
mm,
but everything is educational.
mm.
They're not online doing whatever they want to do, and it is controlled. They have a program in place where we can
Yeah,
see what the
lots.
kids are
Yeah.
doing, so
Yeah.
we know what they're up
Yeah.
to, shall we say. Once I was actually doing a course last week in one of the teacher centres.
Mm,
This topic come up and they said, yes, screen is bad. However, if there is an educational objective behind the reason for using screen, then it's not.
Yeah.
You know,
Plays out. Yeah.
it's not all bad. It's not all bad.
Mm,
It's not all good. It's not all
mm,
bad. Once there's an objective behind what you need to use the screen for, and it's going to help the kid to learn, then that's okay. You
yeah.
know, it's not very black and white yet, the whole
No,
screen
definitely not. No, and it comes down to the family as well as to what their
Yeah,
screen use is at home, but it's also it's good to know that there is a consciousness around it, and
absolutely. Most
you know
definitely.
that we're always learning and we all just want
Yeah.
the best for our kids, right?
And I know my own kids going through the school they're going through, they have been taught on purpose the dangers of what's online. And I think that's really important because unfortunately, our children are going to be confronted with many situations that is going to be out of our control.
Yeah.
And they have to know what's right and what's wrong. And if they have this obviously coming from home, obviously, but if it goes through the school system and they've been taught about this as well, about the dangers that are online, about
Mm.
what to do if you're in this situation, you know, because many times kids find themselves in a situation, for example, Roblox. Many kids have been caught out with what's gone on in Roblox. And
Yeah.
I don't think a 7-year-old is mature enough to know the danger that they're in
No, no, no.
maybe at home or in school about what's going on. Alarm bells might start ringing and they might go, okay, I need to talk to an adult about this.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah.
we talk to our kids about this on a frequent basis, and
Mhm.
still one of those families fighting against having mobile phones in our house. So we're hanging on, we're hanging on. But
Yeah.
I do think it's very important communication.
Yeah, and
And
that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is the school, the teacher, and the family working together,
Mhm. Yeah,
um, you know, to ensure that a child can stay a child for as long as possible.
yeah,
But as they do start to mature and go into, you know, teenage years and adulthood, that they're prepared for those.
yeah.
That's our job
Actually,
as parents.
speaking about what is absolutely amazing, and this happened September 12 months ago, it became law in Spain that kids were not allowed to have mobile phones in the schools,
Exactly.
which is one of the first places around that's happened. And this goes up to fourth year in secondary school.
Mm,
Once they're in first year in secondary school, they're allowed to have it in their bag, but it has to be turned off
mm,
because kids after school sometimes have to get buses or they have to walk home and parents might want to contact them. In
mm,
primary school, if there's a situation like that, you talk to the administration, but they're not allowed to have phones. That's the
mm,
fundamental base.
mm,
And then when they go to bachillerato, which is the fifth and sixth grade, should we say, of
mm.
this school, then they're considered adults and they can have their phones. But it's very, very restricted here, the phone use, which is
And it makes
amazing.
it easier because it's not the parents saying no, it's just the way it is.
Yeah,
So, you know,
exactly.
you
And it's
work
just
together as a
we expected
community.
problems. Yeah, we expected problems, and we had no
Yeah,
resistance. It
fantastic.
was just totally accepted, and that's what had to be done.
Well, Julie, there is an absolute wealth of knowledge for anyone who
Yeah,
is moving to Spain, never mind Cantabria, because this is a lot of this applies to all of Spain. So thank you
definitely.
so much for sharing your time and your knowledge with us today.
I'm delighted to share.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this is all fantastic general knowledge, and the next step for anyone who's moving here is to contact us so that we can
Yeah,
get to know your child and then help find the right school for your child. But thank you, and it's always
exactly.
lovely to speak to a fellow Irish person.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
Lovely to
thank
hear
you
the
very
accent.
much, Julie.
You're very welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you. Have a lovely
Okay.
day. Bye bye.
Are we done? Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Move to Cantabria podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, press subscribe and check out our website movetocantabria.com. Until next time, I'm Grace, and this is the Move to Cantabria podcast, celebrating life in this beautiful corner of northern Spain.